This is the story of a machine built by human hands, yet drifting far beyond human reach. Voyager 2.
The theories that we developed to understand the rings are getting more and more complicated.
A probe launched in the 1970s was never meant to last this long.
Voyager 2 was the one that was chosen to do the grand tour.
It was never meant to cross into the unknown. And yet, more than 40 years later, it floats past the edge of the sun's domain, past warmth, past certainty. What it found there was not silence, but a wall, a sudden shift in the fabric of space itself, a line no one expected, sharp and undeniable. Beyond it, everything changes. The crossing. When Voyager 2 approached the outer edge of the sun's influence, no one expected drama. For years, scientists had pictured the crossing as a soft transition. The solar wind, they believed, would slowly fade into the wider galactic medium, like smoke dissolving into the open air. The textbooks described it almost poetically, as if the boundary of the solar system was a blur, a gentle fading away. But Voyager 2 did not find a blur. It found a line. The spacecraft had been traveling for over 40 years, recording faint signals, monitoring particles, and measuring magnetic fields. Its progress was steady, predictable. Then, over the course of hours, everything changed. Readings that had been stable for decades shifted at once. Radiation levels jumped sharply, climbing far higher than anything recorded inside the solar bubble. Plasma density rose in a sudden surge, as though Voyager had crossed into thicker currents of unseen matter. The magnetic field around it twisted into a new shape, abandoning the familiar patterns of the heliosphere. There was no slow adjustment, no gentle blending. One moment, Voyager was inside the sun's protection. The next, it was not. The transition was so abrupt, it felt like piercing a thin, invisible skin stretched tight around the solar system. Inside was one environment, outside was another. For the scientists watching the data come in, the moment was unsettling. They had expected turbulence, perhaps confusion, but not such clarity. The boundary was not a haze. It was a wall. Voyager 2 had stepped through a door, and nothing about the space beyond resembled what lay behind it. The spacecraft itself noticed no difference. It simply moved forward, silent, steady, following the path its trajectory demanded. But its instruments told another story. The world it left behind was comparatively calm, buffered, and organized by the solar wind. The world it entered was raw, unfiltered, filled with particles flying in from every corner of the galaxy. It was like walking out of a quiet house into a storm. The air inside had been warm and still, shaped by familiar walls. Outside, the wind tore and shifted, and every sound was strange. For Voyager, there was no warning, only a sudden exposure. When researchers compared this event to Voyager 1's earlier crossing in 2012, they saw the same pattern. Though the two probes had crossed at different locations and different times, both reported the same thing: a sharp, unmistakable edge. The distances varied, but the nature of the transition was the same. This confirmation was critical. It meant Voyager 2's experience was not a fluke or a quirk of its position. It was universal. The heliosphere, the great bubble of the sun's influence, ends not in a gradual fade, but in a defined line. The idea alone shifted the way scientists thought about our place in the galaxy. For decades, the edge of the solar system had been imagined as an open shoreline, where the tides of the sun met the tides of the galaxy. Voyager proved it was not a shore at all. It was a threshold, and thresholds suggest separation. They suggest protection. They suggest that once you leave, you cannot easily return. In that moment, the solar system no longer felt like an island adrift in endless space. It felt like a fortress, walled off by forces we had barely begun to understand. The solar fortress. Beyond the sharp boundary, Voyager 2 entered a space unlike anything inside the heliosphere. The bubble of protection created by the sun had ended, and the raw forces of the galaxy pressed in. Particle energy spiked, radiation levels soared, magnetic fields twisted in ways the instruments could detect, but the human mind could barely grasp. The smooth, predictable environment of the solar system was gone. Inside the heliosphere, life on Earth is shielded. Cosmic rays are slowed, solar storms are filtered. The magnetic bubble acts as a guardian, keeping conditions relatively stable. Outside, Voyager 2 showed that this protection is fragile. The wall of the solar system is not endless or uniform. It moves, it breathes, it responds. The solar wind, influenced by the sun's activity, pushes the boundary outward when strong, pulls it inward when weak. This revelation changed the way scientists saw the sun's reach. The heliosphere is not a static shield. It is a dynamic fortress, shaped by solar cycles and interstellar forces alike. Sometimes it stretches, granting Earth more space against galactic intrusions. Other times, it contracts, letting cosmic energy creep closer to home. Our planet, so far away from this frontier, is still influenced by it. Protection is never absolute. Exposure is always possible. Voyager 2 also revealed something surprising about the structure of this boundary. Where models predicted a messy, turbulent region, the transition was precise, almost sharp, like the edge of a door frame. The sun's magnetic field and the interstellar magnetic field outside aligned nearly perfectly.
The magnetic field inside the sun is amplified, is strengthened by the rotating motions and the shearing motions and the churning motions inside the sun.
This suggested a strange kind of harmony, a coordination between the solar system and the galaxy that had never been expected. Space, it seemed, was not entirely chaotic. Even at the edge, patterns emerged, guiding the flow of particles and energy in ways scientists are only beginning to understand. For the first time, humanity could see just how exposed we are when venturing beyond the sun's reach. Voyager 2 is a messenger, telling us that cosmic storms are real, relentless, and often invisible. The sun's bubble is a rare calm in an otherwise violent space, and crossing that line is not just a scientific milestone, it is a journey into a storm we are not equipped to withstand. The implications extend beyond Voyager itself. Any probe, ship, or even life leaving the solar system will confront these forces. And for Earth, it serves as a reminder. Our fortress is strong, but not invincible. The heliosphere protects us, but it is alive, moving with its own rhythm. In the vastness beyond, nothing waits. Everything acts. And the solar system, magnificent as it is only a fragile bubble in a galaxy that does not forgive. A breathing boundary. What Voyager 2 also revealed was that the edge of the solar system is not fixed. It moves. It shifts like the tide, expanding and shrinking with the rhythm of the sun. The barrier is alive in a way, pulsing with the solar cycle that lasts about 11 years. When the sun is active, releasing powerful winds, the heliosphere stretches outward. When it weakens, the barrier contracts, drawing the edge closer to home. This means that the place where Voyager 2 crossed is not the same as where Voyager 1 did. Their paths showed different distances, different layers, yet both confirmed the same truth. The edge breathes. The heliosphere is not a perfect sphere surrounding us. It is stretched and distorted, shaped like a comet with a long trailing tail. The thought unsettled scientists. The shield that protects Earth is not steady. It changes in size and strength, leaving the possibility that one day it could weaken far more than expected. If the solar wind falters, more radiation seeps inside. If it strengthens, the wall holds firm. The data from Voyager 2 showed how delicate this balance really is. The difference between safety and exposure is decided by forces we cannot control. To imagine the sun's breath shaping the very limits of our world changes how we see the cosmos. Our safety is not permanent, it is conditional. The edge of the solar system is thin, flexible, and uncertain. And beyond it, the universe waits with no regard for whether we are ready. The silence and the glitch. For decades, Voyager 2 had been steady. Its instruments hummed with reliability, sending home streams of data across billions of miles. But in 2019, something broke the pattern. Without warning, the spacecraft went silent. Every system shut down. For a few long hours, no signal reached Earth. The team at NASA waited, helpless. Commands were sent, but there was no reply. Voyager 2, a machine that had survived the cold of deep space for more than 40 years, seemed lost. Then, just as suddenly as it had gone dark, it returned. The signal reappeared. The instruments restarted. It was as if the craft had paused and then woken again. The official notes listed a technical cause, an error in power management, perhaps a side effect of aging equipment. But buried in the reports was something harder to explain. Right before the blackout, the spacecraft recorded strange electromagnetic spikes. Radiation levels jumped in sharp bursts. The magnetic field around it fluctuated violently, almost like a tremor passing through unseen space. Some scientists called it a coincidence, an unfortunate timing of internal failure. Others were not convinced. The idea spread quietly. Maybe Voyager had passed through something, a layer of plasma, a ripple from a distant explosion, or even a region of space we had never mapped before. The silence left an unease that never fully went away. Because what troubled researchers most was not just that Voyager 2 had gone dark, it was the thought that the darkness may have been a response. Weather beyond the sun. Once Voyager 2 regained contact, the data it carried told a new story. Space beyond the heliosphere was not calm. It was restless. The instruments showed waves of radiation rising and falling, as though the void itself had seasons. Plasma density did not remain steady, but shifted in pulses, flowing like invisible tides. Scientists had long assumed interstellar space was mostly uniform, cold, empty, predictable. Voyager proved otherwise. It detected sudden surges of high-energy particles, magnetic fields twisting in new directions, and bursts of cosmic rays that arrived in repeating patterns. This was not random noise. It looked like the weather. The comparison startled even those who worked on the mission. To think of the space between stars as carrying storms, currents, and pressure systems seemed almost too strange, yet the readings made it hard to deny. Voyager 2 was drifting in a sea that moved and shifted, unseen but powerful. At first, researchers tried to connect these fluctuations to events from the sun, flares, eruptions, and waves traveling outward. But the timing did not match. Instead, the disturbances seemed to align with distant forces, perhaps the remnants of ancient supernovas, or winds from giant stars far away. The image that emerged was unsettling. Beyond the sun's protection, the galaxy is not a silent desert, but a storm-filled ocean. And Voyager 2, fragile and alone, was now exposed to every surge and swell. The discovery redefined how scientists imagined deep space. It was not empty, it was alive with movement, and Voyager was the first witness. The magnetic alignment. Among the most surprising results was the way magnetic fields behaved at the edge. For years, models predicted a clash where the sun's field would collide with the galaxy's, twisting and breaking into turbulence. But Voyager 2 found no such storm. Instead, the transition was smooth, too smooth. The data revealed that the magnetic field inside our solar system flowed almost perfectly into the one outside. The two were aligned, as if one had been waiting for the other. For scientists, this was deeply confusing. The boundary was expected to be messy, chaotic. Instead, it looked ordered. Two explanations began to form. The first suggested that the solar wind, blowing outward for billions of years, may have sculpted the nearby interstellar field, bending it into alignment over time. The second was stranger, that the galactic field had always been aligned, long before the sun formed, and that our star simply grew up inside a pocket of harmony. Either way, the result was unsettling. If the fields are aligned, it creates easier paths for cosmic rays to slip through. The protective wall may not be as secure as once believed. Instead of resisting, it may sometimes act like a channel, allowing particles to flow inward. This quiet alignment challenged every model of how our solar system interacts with the galaxy. Instead of chaos, there was structure. Instead of conflict, there was cooperation. But that order carried danger. For the first time, scientists began to wonder if the space beyond was not just different, but deliberately shaped. A gate, not just a border. The sharpness of the crossing, the sudden spikes, and the smooth magnetic alignment began to suggest something more than a boundary. To many, it started to feel like a threshold, not a blur, but a gate. Voyager 2's instruments showed a precision that unsettled researchers. The change was not gradual, it was exact, almost as if the spacecraft had triggered something by stepping across. The idea formed quietly. What if the edge of the solar system acts like a checkpoint? It did not mean intelligence was behind it, but the data hinted at a reactive quality. Radiation levels rose the instant the probe passed through, as though the environment itself noticed the intrusion. Patterns were too consistent to dismiss as a coincidence. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, crossing years apart, both recorded abrupt changes at nearly the same type of boundary. Some theorists wondered if the heliosphere responds to outside pressure, adapting like a living shield. Others suggested it might function as a kind of galactic tripwire. Anything leaving the sun's protection would be exposed, its presence announced by sudden bursts and flows. This was speculation, not proof, but the thought lingered. The space Voyager entered felt layered, as if it had rules of its own. Not just random chaos, but structure. And if that was true, then every object that exists in our solar system would not vanish quietly into the dark. It declares itself. Voyager may have done more than just explore. It may have signaled that we are here. The Golden Record's shadow. When Voyager 2 left Earth, it carried more than instruments. Bolted to its side was a golden disk, a message crafted with hope. On it were voices, music, greetings in dozens of languages, even instructions on how to find our planet. It was meant as a gesture of peace, a way to say, "We exist, and we wish to be known." For decades, this record was celebrated as a symbol of human optimism. But as Voyager drifted beyond the heliosphere, some began to see it differently. If the edge of the solar system is sharp and reactive, then passing through it with a map attached feels less like a greeting and more like exposure. The record contains diagrams of our solar system, the location of Earth, the sound of a baby crying, and the beat of a human heart. It carries our identity in delicate grooves of metal, a portrait of humanity carved for strangers who may not share our intentions. Was this an act of courage or of recklessness? Scientists once spoke of the record with pride, but now the tone has shifted. If crossing the heliosphere announces us, then the Golden Record amplifies that announcement. It does not just say we are alive, it shows where to find us. No one knows if anything out there will ever hear it. Perhaps the record will drift forever, unread. But if it is found, then the first impression of humanity will not be silence. It will be a whisper sent with coordinates, a message that cannot be taken back. Fragile protection. The more data arrived, the clearer one truth became. Our protection is fragile. The heliosphere, once thought to be vast and unshakable, is only a thin veil stretched across a violent galaxy. Voyager 2 showed that the difference between safety and danger lies in a narrow band of energy. On one side, life is possible. On the other hand, survival becomes nearly impossible. Inside the sun's shield, radiation is softened. The storms of deep space are held back. Without this invisible barrier, Earth's atmosphere would be struck by waves of high-energy particles. Over time, they would strip the air, damage DNA, and make the surface hostile to life. The safety we take for granted depends on a boundary that bends and shifts, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. Voyager 2's crossing reminded scientists that this shield is not permanent. When the sun grows quiet, the heliosphere contracts, pulling the edge closer. More radiation seeps inward, reaching planets it once could not touch. In the distant future, if the sun loses strength, the wall may shrink so far that Earth feels the galaxy directly. This possibility is unsettling. Our world is not as secure as we imagine. We live inside a fortress built by the solar wind, and that fortress breathes with the rhythms of the star we orbit. It protects us, but it is thin, and it will not last forever. Voyager's discovery stripped away comfort. The universe outside is not waiting patiently. It is pressing against the walls, and those walls are far more delicate than we ever believed. Voyager 2 drifts on, a fragile witness to a reality few imagined. It has shown us that the edge of our home is not soft, but sharp. Beyond it lies movement, storms, and a structure that feels less like emptiness and more like a gate. And through that gate, we sent a message carved in gold. Whether it is a greeting or a warning, no one can know. What is certain is this: the wall has been crossed, the silence has been broken, and somewhere in the dark, our presence has already been declared.